Well, we have over 30 people here at the moment. Yeah. So I should welcome you all to Fear Fáilte Villa, Don Crinusha. You're all.
We're not competing noise-wise.
We should mute now, if you would, friends. But as I say, you're all extremely welcome to this, what promises to be a very interesting talk tonight. But first, I want to tell you just a little bit about the society here. We're celebrating the 30th anniversary of our first AGM at the moment. And the people who came before me and who were no doubt much more entitled to bear the name of Cathaoirleach or chairman, started off with Frida Carroll in 1990. And then we had Rita Madden and then Senan McGrath in 92. Then Rory Stanley, who was the longest serving chairman, he came in 1996 to 2008. Then came Seamus Moriarty, then Padraig Inglesby and John Hamrock, and most recently, Jerry Hayden from 2015 to earlier this year, 2021. And I have the great privilege of succeeding him. So that's a brief history of how our very long-lasting organization has proceeded down through the years. But to get to the point of tonight's meeting, we're talking about place names, or luganamnacha, as they say in Irish, which has always been a favorite interest of mine, especially since I came to live in Wexford so many years ago, where we have all sorts of strange place names. But tonight's speaker is Michael McShane, who is an architect living in Killiney, and he has traced his roots back to County Cavan. And his passion with cartography and mapping has spurred him to develop a very interesting website called cavantownlands.com. It's well worth your while checking this out. It shows what can be done with map making and pinning down the areas, the small little townland areas that your ancestors might have come from. So don't hesitate to check out that. But Michael is going to talk to us about these townlands, particularly in County Cavan, and how they can be a tool for the genealogist and the local historian. And I really think this is a fascinating subject, and I know I'm going to enjoy the talk. So Michael, without hesitation, you're more than welcome to address us tonight. Fáilte Rótas Teach, and thank you very much.
John, thank you very much indeed for the introduction, and also thanks to everybody else there at GSI for giving me the opportunity to make this presentation tonight. The talk will be in 3 parts, and I'm going to try and keep it below the 45 minutes. So if I'm going on a bit, I'm sure Shane or somebody there will rein me in and keep me on track. So without further ado, I'm just going to share the screen now, and you can let me know there, Shane, if you have that when I just get it here for you. Now.
There you go.
Yeah. Okay.
All good.
Yeah, I'll turn on my spotlight as well here just to get that up. Now, hopefully, you can all see the first page there. This is the title of the talk: The Significance of the Irish Townland as an Analytical Tool for the Genealogist and the Local Historian, with an introduction to cavantownlands.com. It's really, I'm using Cavan Townlands as a vehicle, I suppose, just to give some background and more information on townlands in general, and hopefully our site will act as an incentive for people maybe to do something similar for the other counties in the country. I don't work alone. I have to give full credit to my wife, Catherine, who is a data scientist who brings her fantastic analytical and data skills to the site. It wouldn't be possible without her, because really we're dealing with vast quantities of data and quite complex data, which we've had to tidy up and reformat from the various sources to make it a presentable website that is, we think, accessible and hopefully as straightforward as possible. So first of all, I just want to introduce, it's really to talk about Townlands, and the majority of you will know what a townland is, but just really to recap, it's our most basic territorial cadastral land division. It's really a uniquely Irish phenomenon, although I know there are instances in Scotland and maybe in England where there were townlands, but they haven't survived to present day, unlike the Irish townlands, which still survive and thrive. The ancient names reflect the physical characteristics of the locality. So really, it's a very personal thing. It describes where you're from. And the records can be traced back to 12th century and perhaps predate this. There would be records, religious records with land grants have been traced. And in fact, some of the townlands traced right back to the 12th century have been identified and linked to current townlands. There's 61,500 townlands in Ireland, roughly. Cavan has 2,000 townlands. And the earliest records refer to Cavan Townlands as poles. Poles in Cavan, Tates in Fermanagh, Bailey Bows in Tyrone and Armagh, and various other names around the country. The average Cavan Townland is 25 acres in area. And on this screen, I've also just put up the Loganum logo. Loganum are the official database for place names in Ireland. It's a fantastic website, a great resource to have, and gives an incredible amount of information on the townlands. We've actually collaborated with Loganum, and if you go to Loganum looking up a Cavan Townland, you will see that there is a link back to our site. So it's nice to have that encouragement coming from Loganum there. Also, I want to highlight townlands.ie. These are the people who mapped the townlands of the country. I know there's a few people tonight who are involved in that project. Again, a great resource to have for anybody with an interest in townlands and genealogy, history generally. So just getting down to the core of a townland. This, I suppose, relates particularly to Cavan, given the natural geography of the county. Drumlins dot the landscape. They're really a physical manifestation of the ice retreating at the end of the Ice Age, left these small little hills. And just zooming in here, what remained, this is a map, it's actually a map of Monaghan by Patrick Duffy from Maynooth. And it really shows how the townland came about from the physical lie of the land. What you see here are the highlighted are the high points of the drumlins, and these really become the center for each of the townlands. These would have been raised islands sitting in the marsh as the ice retreated, and over the years human settlement and farming has drained the land, and now we're very much in a situation where you can see what an aerial photograph here giving an idea of the actual physical appearance as they are at this moment in time. And you can see that the ripples, it's an amazing phenomenon, that the ripple effect as the glaciers retreated. It's like the tide going out. You can see these ripples in the sand. Moving on the next slide. Again, this is just an aerial shot of the Cavan region around Killikeen, just showing what exists today. Some of the islands still exist. This is through the Loch Earn, but you can see where the land has drained. There's a townland there, there's a drumlin there, there's another drumlin there. Each of these is now an individual townland. And Cloggy, which is the town that I've traced my own family back to, I've just done a little more detail here, just showing how the outline of the townland is defined by the natural characteristics. You have streams defining the northern part of the townland. continue around the stream here, you've got the River Erne, which defines this eastern boundary, and then the core of the Drumlin itself. And interestingly, there's a ferry fort or rath on the southeasterly side of the Drumlin. Really the evidence of the first human habitation settlement in the area, early medieval, from maybe 500 AD to about 1000 AD. And that still exists to this day. Whether my family lived in that particular spot, mind you, the family homestead was just about there on the townland. Now, just getting back to the townland, really, I suppose what I'm trying to show with this drawing here is that the townlands cover the entire of the country. There isn't an inch of the land that isn't part of a townland. So if you can imagine like a patchwork quilt or a net, as somebody has described it, which all connect with each other, each townland would have a number of townlands adjoining. This map shows the entire county of Cavan, and I've just coloured each parish in a different colour. And you can see where the townlands then are the subdivisions of the parish. Just to zoom in a little bit of detail there, Parish of Anna, you've got all of the townlands there, and you've got some dissociated townlands, which are townlands that are attached to another parish, but not physically attached. And these are some anomalies that you'll come across, just to bear in mind if you're doing research, that townlands aren't necessarily going to be contiguous with their own particular parish. So moving on, this is just an introduction now to the website, and I'm just highlighting some of the features here. That's the home page there on the right hand side. The core intention really of the website is to give each of the individual 2,000 townlands their own homepage, their own landing page. And as information becomes available, we plan to populate that information into each individual townland's homepage, so that if you have a townland in mind, you can go straight to that townland and you will see the information that we currently have available on that townland in one location. After 12 years research, and you've all been there, the sources are all over the place, and you can be searching in many different locations to pull together a full picture. What we're trying to do here is trying to kind of bring that together in one location. The navigation of the site is by map or by text. I'll go to that in detail a bit further on in the presentation, and the search by topic. And the townlands are listed by parish. We also have featured articles and news updates. And I suppose a big part of the site is the unique records which we have on the website. The earliest cartographic records of Cavan come from the Bodley map, Bodley maps of the 6 escheated counties, which were the confiscated counties just prior to Plantation. Josias Bodley, the surveyor and architect, very hurriedly surveyed the 6 counties in the space of a couple of weeks in 1609 to prepare the maps, which were to be used for the subdivision of the counties for Plantation. The next item is the 1652 Commonwealth survey of Cavan, which was carried out soon after the Cromwellian suppression of the 1641 rising. And that covered the entire of Cavan. It's unique to Cavan as well. Nothing else like this that I'm aware of has been found for any other county. And 1,500 townlands have been identified so far. So we've nearly, we've got 3/4 of the townlands of Cavan are listed. The 1821 census, again, we're looking in Cavan, there's quite a lot of information that managed to survive the various fires and loss of material over the years. The 1821 census covers half of the parish, and there's 80,000 individual records available there. The tithe allotment books of around 1830, which is the church tax records, cover 30,000 records. name books of 1836 from the OS surveys, kindly given to us by Anna Sexton of Heart of Breffni Journal. So just moving on, I'm just going to cut now to 3 short video clips which will guide you through the various elements on the website. And just bear with me now till I get this up and running for you. You should be seeing the home page there, and I'll just commence this video now. In this video clip, I just want to give you a quick overview of the website homepage and also a few tips on locating the townland that you may have an interest in. As you can see, this is the homepage, and you are presented with the main items: the civil records, maps, and library. Again, we've got some drop-down menus here. Civil records gives you a list of the civil records that we have available on the site. We have a map section, a library section, links, and a contact section. Further down the homepage, we've got the interactive map, which has the parishes of Cavan highlighted. You can click on a parish to drill down to the Townland map. I'll come back to that in a minute. And towards the bottom of the page, you've got the latest news, articles, tips, and some links to the library and content that's available on the site. Also some advice on searching by name, individual name here. So just going back to carrying out a search for a townland, we have 2 access routes to Townland search. First of all, you've got the search bar here, and by typing in the name of the townland, for instance, if you're looking for the townland of Cloggy, we start typing CLO, and you'll see that the list below gets populated with the closest matches. You can scroll down to that and click the townland you're looking for. When you click here, this brings you to the individual web page for that particular townland. The townland map is brought up here, and the townland is highlighted. It's useful just to see that you can scroll around to highlight the adjoining townlands, and this can be very useful for tracing records also. In this list, we get a summary on which will tell us what information is available on this particular townland, and you've got all the basic information here. Any related articles can also be accessed from this position, and the earliest information here on Cloggy, as it happens, is the 1609 Plantation maps by Bodley, where Cloggy was in fact called Clonkeen. The next available information is the Commonwealth survey 1652, at which time the town was called Clonkeen and Auchtervullen. The proprietor was Sir Francis Hamilton, who acquired the lands in 1910 as a Scottish planter. The map can be accessed for the 1652 records showing the land holdings at that particular moment in time. The next available record is the Tithe Plotman books, 1832. You'll see that this list has 12 entries in total. 10 of the entries are shown here. Click next to get any further entries that may turn up here. And again, this list can be filtered by surname, townland name, forename to pin down a particular result. Nothing turned up for the name books of 1836, and the Killishandra census of 1841 is available here for Cloggy. Again, there are 63 entries, and you can go through the entire list from here, and that can be filtered under the various headings which are shown here. And the final available information for Cloggy is the Griffiths valuation of 1857. So just going back to the home page, I'll show you the other way to access a townland, and this is by using the map. So if you have a rough idea where your townland is located, you can scroll around the map of Cavan and again highlight your parish of interest. Clicking on that brings you down to the Townland map for that particular parish, and you can then scroll around the parish and each individual townland is highlighted. So if you want to have a look at the townland of let's say Killygarry, click on Killygarry and you're brought to the home page for that particular townland. And again, just useful to note, the townlands which adjoin and which are in the same parish can be highlighted. They can also be clicked on and you can be brought to their particular pages. And there's a summary of the information for this particular townland. I won't go through it in detail here, but I think this will give you an idea as to how to navigate the website looking for a townland. In this video clip, I just want to give you a quick overview of the website home. Sorry, now the next clip I'm going to play for you is just an introduction to the library. This will just give you access to some of the highlights that we have in our library. So I'll go ahead and play that for you now. In this video clip, I just want to give you a very quick overview of the library section on the website. Going to the library from the home page, you'll be presented with this full list of books which are Cavan related. It's really a bibliography. We don't have content for all of the books shown here, but there are some highlights which I'd like to bring to your attention. For instance, going to the journals section, you'll see that we have the content for all of the Breffni Antiquarian and Historical Society journal, which were published from 1920 to 1933. You can go in and you'll be able to view the contents. In fact, we have the full set of journals for this particular publication. So not only contents, but in fact you can drill right down to the journal itself. And thanks to Cavan Library for allowing us to reproduce their scans. Returning to the journals page again, we can go to Heart of Breffni, and you'll note that when you click over or hover over an image, when the image is highlighted, that means there is content behind there. So just click on that, and here you'll see all the contents of Heart of Breffni from 1978 to 1987. In some cases we have entire publications. We've been very fortunate to get a copy of Turbulence in Tullyhunco by Tomás O'Reilly, who kindly gave us a publication. And again, clicking on that image, you are brought to the full book, which you can read in a 3D flip format here. And if you have an interest in this particular topic, it's a fantastic book and well worth a read. Continuing on here, we have other sections, a reference section. Again, a selection of books here which will bring you to some particular source material that may be of interest. We've got the Plantation section, again a selection of books covering the plantation of Ulster. A lot of coverage in relation to Cavan can be found here. And then a section on mapping, just mapping in general, covering the entire country for those who have an interest in mapping and cartography. However, there are specific articles on Cavan, for instance, the 1610 Bodley's map of Tullyhunco, and the full article can be read here. So that's the overview of the library. In due course and over time, we hope to populate a lot more content behind the front pages of these books and journals, and it's a work in progress, so please do return and keep on checking out any new content which will appear over time. In this video, this is the third and final video clip. It's just an introduction to the map section of the website, and I'll play that for you now. This is the map section on the website. I just want to give you a very quick overview of what we have available here. Just to go through each of the items. First of all, we've got the Bodley Plantation map of the Barony of Tullyhunco 1609. The plantation maps which were prepared for the later plantation. This is a study on the Barony of Tullyhunco, 3 parishes, and we've got some comparative maps which we've prepared here, comparing the Bodley map to the present day map. So again, useful for tracking down the townland names from this period and the development of the estates. Again, they can all be gone into detail there. You can have a further closer look at each of those maps. Just going back to the map homepage, we've got the Ordnance Survey section. In the Ordnance Survey section, got a selection of maps which are available. We've got the 1-inch maps which make up County Cavan, highlighted in green here on the map of Ireland, and we have the full version of each of these 1-inch maps
from the early
which can be viewed in
1900s.
further detail there. I won't go into those in detail here. Going back again, we've got the Bodley maps for all of the baronies of Cavan. Again, we don't have comparative studies for the baronies other than Tullyhunco. I'll leave that for somebody else to take on the challenge to go through each of these maps, but you can go in and have a look at the map itself, and again, useful with townland names and the origins of the various estates. So just the Taylor and Skinner road maps of 1778, again a very useful set of maps here, and I've just put together this map here. You see Cavan in the background, just indicating where each of the Taylor and Skinner map pages relate to, and as you can see, nearly the entire of the county of Cavan is covered by this particular map set, which were really prepared for travellers from this period, outlining the roads and the routes which were available to them. But there is some very useful information to be gleaned here from these maps. And again, I'll just go back to the Commonwealth survey maps. These maps we prepared from the Commonwealth survey of 1652-53, and there's a map available for each of the parishes of County Cavan from this era, showing the various estates which had survived or otherwise after the 1841 rebellion was suppressed by Cromwell.
1641.
So again, just a useful place to find townland maps for an individual parish, but you have the added bonus here of the estates coloured, for instance, the purple there, Colonel Thomas Coote. And I'll go back, we'll end the maps on that note. So that's the end of the video clips. This is part 3 now of the presentation, and we'll be looking at the site content in more detail and some issues that we've turned up with the National Archives census records which they have online. This first item is the Bodley Plantation maps of 1609-1610. It's interesting to note that 4 counties in Northern Ireland maps have survived, and they really are well worth investigating. They're the earliest set of Irish townland surveys surviving in cartographic form, so that they represent a very important body of work. Again, as I said earlier, they were made of the 6 confiscated counties after the flight of the Earls in 1607 for plantation purposes, and the maps were then, the townlands were subdivided or grouped, should I say, into estates, which were then granted to the various planters from England and Scotland. And of course, there were some regrants to natives, but not that many. The task of surveyors was to record the number and the name of each bailiebow, tate, pole, quarter, which are the Townlands names in the various counties. And I say the full set of maps for the 4 counties of Armagh, Cavan, Fermanagh and Tyrone survive to this day. Parts of Derry and Louth also appear in the set of maps. So just if you have an interest in Derry and Louth, again, worth a look here. Unfortunately, Donegal and much of Coleraine, as Derry was known then, were lost. The digital images of the 28 surviving maps can be seen online at the Queen's University Belfast website. And that's just zooming in there on the Cavan county map with the baronies of Cavan numbered there. Excuse me, that's my dog in the background who shouldn't be in the room. Apologies. So that's just a detail of one of the maps there, and I'll just go on to that. They're beautiful drawings in themselves, and again, this is just a comparative map which I did for the barony of Tullyhunco, reoriented the map north in the same direction. So you can see that they're not particularly accurate in terms of their cartographic representation as to what exists today, which is this is the DOS based map we have here on the right hand side. But a lot of the relationships of townland to adjoining townlands is quite accurate, and we have indexed the vast majority of the townlands and identified them to current day townlands. Again, that's just a little further detail on the barony map of Tullyhunco, and that's just the map we've prepared of the barony as it is today. The different colours here represent the estates which were carved out of the parishes. You've got 3 parishes here. You've got the north, you've got the parish of Kildallan, that's the parish dividing line. The central parish is the parish of Killashandra, and the lower parish is the parish of Scrabney. So these 3 parishes make up the barony of Tullyhunco. As I say, these were then subdivided into the estates, which were subsequently granted in 1610 to the various planters. And a lot of these estates have actually survived pretty much intact. And in the land registry, land valuation records, you can see where, and particularly with the old estate rental records in particular, you can see where the old estates, as I say, have remained intact, although after the 1641 rebellion and the Cromwellian suppression, a lot of the townlands were carved out and given to individuals, but again, many were subsequently brought back by landlords who returned after the rebellion to reclaim their lands. This is a comparison of the estate of Drumheeda as it exists today and as it was on the Bodley map. So you can see we've identified the various townlands. There's D1, Drumheart, and Drumheart here today. And you can see that adjoining Drumheart, you have D5, which is Loch Naffin and Rockfield, and that relationship still exists to this day. Again, useful just to use the physical features, for instance, the river and streams, which will kind of help you determine where the townland was at that particular time. The next record we have chronologically is the Commonwealth survey, which I mentioned earlier, of 1652. This lists the proprietors of the various townlands after the Cromwellian suppression, and many of the lands here have been granted on or gifted to the adventurers and the soldiers who were paid in terms of land as opposed to cash, and you get some unusual names of individual soldiers there who would have been granted these properties. From that document, and this is a document that was discovered in 1835 by an employee of the Ordnance Survey Office, a man called Mooney, who transcribed the original documents into a small little notebook, which I came across in the Royal Irish Academy. And I went through that, and it was interesting because I managed to identify about 1,500 townlands and link them to their current denominations. And with that information, we were able to prepare parish maps showing the various owners. And for instance, we have got in purple here, you've got Stephen Butler. So I colored the Stephen Butler townlands. And again, you can see that that would relate to an original estate. Again, in green, Thomas White, that's the makings of an estate there as well. And then you've got Robert Sanderson over here. Again, that would have been one of the original estates. So somewhat fragmented, but I think you get the idea of what's happening there. The records we have tabulated and they're searchable on the website. So you can filter by parish, by townland, or by proprietor. So if you know the name of one of the landlords, you can type the name in and any townland in his ownership will come up in the list. Just interesting to note here as well, the names and how they've remained fairly intact over the centuries. This column here is the 1652 name. The column here is the current townland name. So just comparing Coolbioga is there, Corrahow, Corris Point, Corracreeny, Crekin, Doritas. So again, useful to know the names from 1652 because you may come across documents where you may get the 1652 name or something similar, and you will then realize that actually, Derry Naff actually relates to Derry Cranf currently. Now this is one of the interesting ones that we've just put up in the last couple of months on the site. It's the 1821 census records for Cavan. This map here will just give you an idea of the extent of the records which have remained. Again, Cavan has been quite fortunate in the fact that these records are still existing. 17 of the 36 parishes are pretty much intact and are available to view on the National Archives website. However, just a word of caution there, because it's 80,000 individuals listed, so it's a substantial document and unique from this era. The issues that we came across regarding transcription and indexation were significant. What we find is that a lot of the records, and in particular the 1821 records, have been transcribed by the Mormons, the Church of Latter-day Saints. They would have photographed the original records back, I think, in the 50s, and over the years they have been transcribed by their volunteers. But unfortunately, their volunteers don't have any local knowledge, so you get a lot of misspellings and mistranscribed records. So we've just gone through the townland names, and we have linked any townland names that we've identified to the current townland name and directed the records and made them available, because what we found is that if you're just searching by townland, we reckon that at least 75% of the records would be concealed and unavailable to read on the National Archives site. We also discovered that the National Archives site, the records are actually duplicated in their entirety. So there's 160 records on the National Archives website. And this actually came about, I discovered that the records were photographed twice for some reason. Both sets ended up in Utah, where they, in Salt Lake City, where they were transcribed. But again, because of local knowledge here, the 160 records that were transcribed were sent back to the National Archives, and the full 160 were put up on the website. Now, interestingly as well here, you'll find that some of the transcriptions don't match. So even though they were looking at the same document, you might find a Paul and a Peter, or a John and a Johnny or a James. So you may be led to believe that another individual exists. That's not the case. So in this scenario, I'd point everybody back to view the original photograph records. If you're coming close to identifying an individual, don't rely on the National Archives. I think what we've done is we've tried to improve on it. I think we've got maybe 95% accuracy, somewhere in around that. And we've made our data searchable by filter, so you can filter down by occupation, by year, by name, etc. As I said, we haven't checked surnames here. There's 80,000, and I think that's another day's work. And importantly, all of the townlands that we identified, we have matched them back to their log annum 4-digit identification number, which I think is critical, given that there are lots of townlands with same names, similar names, and it can be quite confusing out there. This is just a screenshot now of the 1821 table. Again, I've just put in Peter Brady. So if you're looking for Peter Brady, all the records of Peter Brady will be thrown up there. So the townlands are identified, the age, the occupation, the relation to head. But you can filter this data set in any particular way. You can filter by parish, by townland. If you're just looking for a particular townland who's in the townland in 1821, type in the townland name here. The tithe allotment book records of 1830, you may be familiar with. These are the church tax records, which were applied to the tenant farmers of the time to fund the established church, the Church of Ireland. Again, a good census replacement document available to view on the National Archives website, but there are pitfalls here. Again, I'll just very quickly bring you through those. The table here on the right, we've identified where each townland has been indexed to on the National Archives site. Baileyborough, for instance, has been put into County Meath. Anything highlighted in blue here is not in Cavan, it should be in Cavan. Drumgoon ended up in County Down for some reason. Drumriley, Leitrim, Enniskeane, Kilbride, Clodallen ended up in County Meath. Some cases that it's reasonable to expect because the parish may have straddled both counties. But when you go down to Lough and Castlecare here, down in County Cork, that was a pretty bizarre one. But again, we've identified or tried to identify most of these errors, and they are now rectified and available on our website to view. There's no standardized or approved townland spelling at the time of this information being recorded. So townland names weren't really pinned down to an approved format until the 1830s, when the Ordnance Survey began to map the country. And you'll come across the involvement of the great Irish scholar John O'Donovan, who really managed to save a lot of the Irish names for posterity and brought them into the OS. Again, there's some duplication of records here because the majority of records relate to one particular year, but we've found that, again, you can see in this column here, some townlands were surveyed over a number of years. So for instance, Annagalif here was surveyed over what's that, a 4-year period. So all these duplicated records also have ended up in this data set. Again, the poor indexation, I've mentioned that. Inconsistent transcription, again, just badly transcribed, misread. And again, the lack of local knowledge led into a lot of the errors ending up on the website. As I said, 75% were regular concealed. And again, similar to the previous record, we haven't checked the individual surnames. There's 30,000 names in the data set, but worth exploring. We've also got 132 unmatched townlands, which are townland names which may have vanished or been subsumed into other townlands, or have just been so badly transcribed that we can't identify them. And again, we've matched them to their log annum ID. Just an example of one of the townlands. This is the town of Snakehill in the parish of Kilmore. We came across this record spelled Inakeel. So if you're on the National Archives website and you're typing in SNAKeel, you're not going to find it because that's how it's referenced. So as I said earlier, anybody who is at this level of research really needs to go to view the original photographic records which are available on the FamilySearch website. Now, you do have to open an account with them. There's no charge for it, but it does open up a Pandora's box of the photographic records which they have. And it's a lot more accessible than the National Archives method, where you have to download each PDF and view them individually. FamilySearch, you can just go from one to the next in the records, and you'll find that there's indexes in some cases. That's a typical title plotting book record there for the Townland of Behy, giving the leaseholders' names and description of the lands which are available there. Killashen, one of the last items here for you. This is again a unique record. The only surviving census record for any parish in the entire country of 1841 is for the parish of Killashandra. A copy apparently ended up in the Sheriff's Office in County Cavan, reason unknown. But again, this is available at National Archives. Many of the same issues do apply here, but it's a much more detailed document because as the years went by, the census enumerated the documentation or the information being sought was a lot more detailed. So I say you can now go to this table on the website, and we've made it searchable by the various headings which were recorded at the time. This is just an example. We managed to identify the constables, the police force. You can now get a full list of the entire police force for that particular night in 1841 when the census was made. And you'll see, interestingly, that the policemen don't come from Cavan. I think that still applies today. They don't police their own area. And interestingly, where you can trace where they come from. They're relatively young ages. Guards are always young, aren't they? And again, a very useful method of searching there, like again, surname, name, and occupation. And just to end up now, just a small selection of some reference books which I would recommend for anybody who wants to do any further reading on the topic. Patrick Duffy's essay on the Ulster, the Cavan Townlands, can be read on our website in the library, and also a paper by William Reeves of 1861. Again, a very interesting document. You can read the entire of that document there as well. And another book, which unfortunately we don't have on the website yet. Hopefully we may get that in due course. Also well worth a read. So on that note, I'll end up and hand back over to Shane if he can take back over the screen there.